My name is Alara. I never believed my life would turn into the kind of story people whisper about at dinner parties. But here I am, telling you how the man who promised me forever decided to spend our honeymoon with someone else, and how I made sure the entire world saw who he truly was. The day we got married was the kind of day you dream about as a child. Golden light poured through the windows of the chapel. The air smelled of lilies and champagne. Friends and family filled the pews, their faces glowing with happiness for us. Adrian, my new husband, stood at the altar with that devastating smile that always seemed to melt any doubt I had. When he said his vows, I believed every word. Forever, he whispered as he slipped the ring onto my finger. I'll protect your heart with mine. The applause, the music, the kiss, it felt like stepping into a new life. My heart was so full it hurt. That night, while our guests danced and toasted us, I imagined the life ahead. A honeymoon in Santorini. A house filled with laughter. Children someday. Everything I thought I deserved. But forever turned out to be shorter than the flight we never took together. Because when the plane landed in Greece, only one of us stepped off. Me. Alone. With my luggage, my white dress folded neatly in my carry-on, and a sinking pit in my stomach that no amount of wine on the flight could numb. Adrian wasn't there. He had told me, at the airport, that he had urgent business. A last-minute deal that needed his signature. Go ahead without me, he said, pressing a kiss to my forehead. I'll be there in 2 days. Promise. I wanted to believe him. Honeymoon trips get delayed sometimes. Work emergencies happen. But the first night in that villa by the sea, staring at the bed made for two, I felt a gnawing unease. His phone went straight to voicemail. His messages were short, vague. And then, on the second night, I saw it. A photo. Sent to me accidentally, or maybe fate decided I deserved the truth. Adrian was in Paris. Not with clients. With her. A woman I didn't know, leaning into him with a smile that said she believed she had won something. The Eiffel Tower glittered in the background like a cruel joke. My husband, my brand new husband, was spending our honeymoon in another woman's bed. I sat there, phone trembling in my hand, waves crashing against the rocks outside, realizing that my forever was already broken. But here's the thing about betrayal, once it pierces you, you either bleed quietly, or you sharpen the blade. And I don't bleed quietly. I did not cry. I did not scream. I sat very still on the white stone terrace and listened to the sea. When the body goes quiet, the mind can move. I opened my laptop. I opened my phone. I opened every place where truth likes to hide. The first proof came easy. We shared a travel wallet for the honeymoon. It held our bookings, our insurance, and the joint card we used for wedding expenses. I logged in. The list of charges tripped across the screen like a confession. A boutique in Paris. A florist on the left bank. A dinner for two at a rooftop brasserie. All within the last 24 hours. All while I slept in a villa made for newlyweds. I took screenshots. I saved them with dates and times. I forwarded each file to my personal email and to a fresh folder I named Honeymoon Truth. I set it to private. I set a passcode. I wrote a short note at the top of a clean document. Timeline begins the night after our wedding. Then I opened the photo he had sent by mistake. I studied it, not for romance, for information. The Eiffel Tower filled the frame. The glass behind them reflected a menu board. His arm was around her shoulders. She wore a red dress with a low back and a gold chain. Her smile was not shy. It was satisfied. I saved the image, then checked the file details. Location data was still attached. The file said Paris. The timestamp matched the florist charge. I kept going. A loyalty email from his airline. Thank you for choosing us on your route to Charles de Gaulle. I checked the date. The flight left the same afternoon. He kissed my forehead and said there was a deal that could not wait. He did not board a plane to Greece the next day. He did not change to a later flight. He did not even hold a seat. He went to her without missing a beat. I called the villa manager and asked for a written note that I had arrived alone and checked in as a single guest. She sent it within 10 minutes. "For your records," she wrote. I filed it with the rest. I thought back over the months before the wedding. The late nights. The phone always face down. The new cologne that did not smell like him. The careful way he had pushed our honeymoon dates, saying he wanted the best sunsets. He had not been moving sunsets. He had been lining up a second life. I opened our shared calendar. I scrolled. He had marked client dinner on the second night of our honeymoon week. The dinner address matched the rooftop brasserie on my card statement. He had used our wedding account to pay for romance in another city. The audacity did not even blink. I wrote down each item in my timeline. I kept the entries simple. Card charge. Boutique. 2 scarves. Paris. Airline miles posted. Dinner for 2. Photo received. Time stamp. I did not add adjectives. The facts did not need decoration. I called the airline, not to trick them, but as an authorized contact on our travel insurance. I said I needed to verify a change. The agent read the note. "Mr. Hale cancelled his Athens leg," she said. "No rebooking to Greece." She paused. "Would you like to reopen the original itinerary?" My breath felt heavy and steady at the same time. "No," I said. "Thank you for confirming." I hung up. I drank water. I kept going. Our card app sent push alerts. I turned them back on. I watched small charges appear as the night in Paris became morning. A bakery. A taxi. A museum gift shop. He was not hiding. He had not bothered to try. I checked my own messages to him. I saw the pattern now. His replies were timed to my time zone. Short. Tender in a lazy way. He had written, "Soon." He had written, "Sleep." He had not written, "I am sorry." He had not written, "I am on a plane." He had not written, "I am with her." He had written nothing true. I opened my wedding file. I scanned the document where we had chosen readings for the ceremony. "Protect your heart with mine." I traced the words with my finger, not to keep them, to release them. Then I saved a copy of the file with a new name. What I was promised. I left it there, like a marker on a map I would not return to. The sea wind rose. The curtain lifted. A gull cried once and then was gone. Santorini glittered like a postcard sent to the wrong address. I made tea. I ate 2 almonds. I steadied myself. Then I opened his cloud photo album. It was shared with me because we had planned to drop honeymoon photos into one place. He had forgotten to switch it off. The album was full of our wedding. It was also full of a city we had not visited together. Street lamps on wet pavement. A hand holding 2 coffee cups. A pale scar on a wrist that was not mine. I zoomed in. The scar was small, a thin white crescent near the thumb. It would not leave my head. I zoomed out again. One picture showed a reservation card on a table. The corner of the card listed a name. The name was written in neat script. Sabine. I said it out loud. Sabine. The sound cut the air like a dull knife. I took a screenshot. I added it to the timeline. Name of companion, visible on table card. I stood up. I walked to the edge of the terrace. The water kept moving. I felt my own life start to move with it. This was not a question anymore. It was a path. I would not wait for Adrian in a white dress under a blue sky while he fed another woman cream pastries with our money. I would not be the faithful bride who forgave what he had not even the decency to hide. I would not be a secret in my own marriage. I went inside. I closed the suitcase I had never fully unpacked. I opened the travel wallet and bought a ticket. Not back to our home. Not south to another island. North. To Paris. I pulled my hair into a knot. I put on a simple coat. I checked the address from the dinner receipt. I checked the address from the florist. I checked the museum hours. I built a list. I saved it under a new title. Places they believe are only theirs. I sent Adrian one message. I hope your meeting is going well. I turned my phone face down. I picked up my passport. I walked to the door. Tomorrow I would land in his fantasy. Tomorrow I would stand under those lights. Tomorrow I would discover whether Sabine was a shadow or a person who looked me in the eye. And tomorrow, I would begin to decide the shape of my answer. I clicked purchase, and the confirmation flashed blue, along with a hotel reservation in his name that included one note in bold letters, suite prepared for Adrian and Sabine. The flight to Paris was quiet. Too quiet. I sat by the window, the clouds spread below me like a blanket, and every heartbeat felt like it was counting down. I had no tears left, no panic either. Only clarity. When I landed, the city was awake. Paris smelled like bread and rain, the streets shining with that sheen of late-night drizzle. I carried only one suitcase, but inside it I had packed my entire purpose. I went first to the florist. The receipt from my card said Rue de Rivoli. The bell above the door chimed as I entered. The shop was warm, full of lilies and roses, stems and buckets, petals scattered like secrets on the floor. Bonjour, the florist said with a smile. Then she tilted her head. Recognition flickered in her eyes. Ah, Monsieur Hale's wife? Her voice was too kind, too knowing. I froze. She assumed. She assumed because Adrian had walked in here with someone else and introduced her with confidence. I forced a polite nod. Yes. Adrian's wife. Her smile deepened, and she reached for her ledger. Such a romantic man. Always red roses. Always 24. She tapped her pen. And last week he ordered lilies. For Sabine. The name dropped heavy between us. I thanked her, bought a single rose, and left. The stem pricked my finger through the paper wrap. The blood was small, but it felt symbolic. Next, the restaurant. The rooftop brasserie with the Eiffel Tower view. The maitre d' checked the reservation list without suspicion. Suite for two, he said. Monsieur Hale and Madame Sabine. He looked up, polite. Do you need the same table tonight? I shook my head. My throat was tight, but I held the lie. Not tonight. Merci. I left quickly, clutching the receipt copy I had asked him to print. The Eiffel Tower loomed above, its lights flickering against the rain. Somewhere under those lights, my husband had touched her hand and laughed the way he used to laugh with me. By mid-afternoon, I walked to the museum. It was crowded with tourists, their voices echoing in the vaulted hall. I scanned every corner until I found the gift shop. The cashier recognized the name on the receipt. Oui, Monsieur Hale, he was here with his companion, she said in accented English. They bought 2 scarves, one in red, one in blue. I thanked her. My chest burned, but I did not break. Every confirmation was another brick in the wall I was building. Not to cage myself, but to trap the lies where they belonged. Finally, the hotel. The reservation was in his name, but the clerk read the notes without hesitation. Mr. Hale and Ms. Sabine, she said, her French lilt soft and precise. Suite on the top floor, 5 nights. Very exclusive. I smiled, brittle. Of course. I asked for a copy of the invoice, pretending it was for expense records. She printed it, slid it across the counter. And then, as if the universe demanded closure, I saw her. Sabine. The woman from the photo. The red dress. The gold chain. She walked through the lobby, heels clicking like punctuation marks. She was stunning, not in a movie way, but in a lived-in, confident way. She laughed into her phone, tossed her hair, and walked straight toward the elevators. I stood frozen. She passed within arm's reach. She smelled of roses, the florist's roses, my roses. The elevator doors opened. She stepped inside. The doors closed. And with them, my last shred of doubt vanished. Adrian was upstairs, in a suite I had paid for, with her. I walked out of the hotel into the Paris night, clutching every receipt, every photo, every proof. My revenge would not be loud tonight. But I knew, with every cell of my body, that it had begun. I pressed my hand against the wet stone wall outside the hotel and whispered to myself, tomorrow, Adrian will see me, not as his wife, not as his fool, but as the truth he cannot escape. The morning air in Paris was sharp, like it had been cut with glass. I had not slept. My hotel room was small, nothing like the suite Adrian had booked with Sabine. I sat at the desk, receipts spread like cards in a gambler's hand. Proof. Hard, undeniable proof. But proof meant nothing if it stayed hidden. I needed allies. I opened my laptop and sent the first email to Eleanor, my older sister. Eleanor was the kind of woman who wore her truth like armor. She had warned me years ago about Adrian. He looks too polished, she had said. Shiny men usually hide the rust. I hated her for that sentence at the time. Now it felt prophetic. She called me within minutes. Lyra, she said, her voice steady. Tell me everything. I did. The florist. The receipts. The red dress. The hotel. My voice did not shake. Eleanor listened like she was recording every word into stone. When I finished, she exhaled slowly. You have him. But if you want to end him clean, you need more than anger. You need a strategy. She gave me the name of a lawyer she trusted. Her friend, Julian. He knows how to build cases without fire. He builds them with facts. I called Julian next. His voice was calm, almost detached, the voice of someone who had walked through 100 storms and never gotten wet. I explained everything. He asked for dates, for copies, for details. He asked questions that made me realize how deep betrayal bleeds. Do not confront him yet, Julian said firmly. If you want this to stand, you wait. Let him write his own ending. He will not resist. By afternoon, I had scanned and sent everything. Julian replied with one sentence, you are building a wall he cannot climb. But I needed more. Not just legal strength. I needed someone who knew Sabine. That night, I found her social media. It was not hard. Her life was curated in perfect squares, dinners, concerts, designer bags, the kind of world Adrian always said we could never afford. There were photos of her in Paris, the Eiffel Tower behind her, captions about love, about finally finding the one. The one. My stomach twisted. I scrolled further. And then, my breath caught. A familiar name like nearly every post. Clara. My old friend from university. The friend I had lost touch with after marriage. I sent her a message. Short. Clara, do you know Sabine? The reply came within the hour. Yes. Why? My fingers hovered. I typed, because she is with my husband. Silence for 5 minutes. Then, oh my God. Lyra, I had no idea. Call me. Now. I did. Clara's voice shook with disbelief and guilt. I introduced them. At a gallery. I thought she was single, I thought he was. Lyra, I am so sorry. I almost laughed. Do not be sorry. You just gave me another weapon. We talked for an hour. She told me details Sabine had shared, how Adrian promised her trips, promised her forever. How he used the same lines he once used on me. By the time I hung up, I was not broken anymore. I was sharp. I had my sister, my lawyer, and now an accidental ally who had given me a window into Sabine's world. And as I stared out at the Paris skyline, I knew the next step. I would not run from the truth. I would drag it into the light. My phone buzzed with a new message from Julian. If you want maximum impact, wait until he feels untouchable. Let him plan his next grand gesture, and then take it from him. Julian's message played in my mind like a steady drumbeat. Wait until he feels untouchable. Adrian always thrived on spectacle. He never cheated quietly. He needed stages. That was how he defined himself: big gestures, big words, big lies. So I waited. And I planned. Back home, the world pretended to be normal. He texted me as if nothing had happened. Long days at the office, he wrote. You wouldn't believe the deadlines. Deadlines. That was the word he chose while Sabine posted photos of roses and champagne. I did not answer most of his messages. I kept my silence sharp, like glass. He assumed my quiet was weakness. It was not. It was the gathering of storms. Julian met me twice a week in his office. He wore simple suits, his desk neat, his questions sharp. He helped me build a timeline: receipts, travel records, screenshots, statements from Clara. Every detail stacked into something Adrian could not laugh away. Think of this as architecture, Julian said. One brick at a time. By the end, it's a tower. And he will be standing beneath it when it falls. Meanwhile, Eleanor became my confidant. She reminded me why I was doing this. Not just for you, Lyra. For every woman who has been told to calm down when her instincts were right. She was right. This was bigger than my marriage. This was about truth. And then, the opportunity arrived like it had been scripted. Adrian announced he was throwing a celebration dinner for a major career milestone. He booked a private room at the fanciest restaurant in town. He sent invitations to colleagues, friends, even family. Eleanor smirked when I told her. There it is, she said. The stage. That's where you take everything back. I nodded. That's where I'll end it. Julian agreed. If you want him exposed, do it in front of the people who matter to him most. But remember, this has to stay clean. Facts, not fury. So we built the counterplan. Step by step. First, the evidence packet. Julian helped prepare a sleek folder: dates, receipts, screenshots, all cross-referenced. No gossip. Only truth. Second, the witnesses. Clara agreed to stand by me. She was nervous, but firm. I can't believe I introduced them, she said. But if my mistake can help you, I'll do it. Third, the moment. I would wait until Adrian gave his speech. He loved speeches. He loved holding the room. That was when I would rise. That was when I would show the truth. But I wanted something more. Something symbolic. So I bought a bouquet of the exact roses Sabine had flaunted online. Bright, blood red. I kept them hidden, waiting. The night before the dinner, Eleanor called me. Are you ready? I looked at the evidence spread on my table. The roses sat in water, petals heavy with scent. My hands did not shake. I've been ready since Paris, I said. Still, a whisper of doubt slid into me as I hung up. Could I really do it? Could I stand there, in front of everyone, and shatter his perfect performance? Then my phone buzzed. A message from Adrian: I can't wait for tomorrow. You'll be so proud of me. Proud. The word burned. He had drained my trust, my love, and even our money. And he thought I would still clap for him. I stared at the message until my doubt turned into steel. Tomorrow, the clapping would stop. That night, I dreamed of the dinner. But in my dream, the chair beside Adrian wasn't empty. Sabine was there, her hand on his arm, her smile sharp. When I woke, my heart was pounding. What if it wasn't just a dream? The restaurant glowed with gold light, chandeliers casting soft shadows over the polished wood. It smelled of roasted lamb and expensive wine. This was Adrian's temple, the place where he would bask in admiration. I wore a dark dress, simple but sharp. Eleanor called it my armor. She came with me, her steady presence grounding me. Clara slipped in quietly, choosing a seat near the back. Julian waited nearby, in case anything went wrong. Adrian was already holding court when I arrived. His laugh carried across the room, too loud, too confident. He kissed my cheek for show, and I let him. His eyes slid over me without pause, already searching the room for bigger prey. The first courses arrived. Toasts followed. Adrian thrived on the attention, his voice smooth as velvet as he spoke about sacrifice and partnership. I watched him raise his glass and thank me, for being his rock. The irony was bitter. Then it happened. The door opened, and she walked in. Sabine. Her dress shimmered like liquid silver. Her heels clicked against the marble floor. She didn't look nervous. She looked invited. My stomach clenched. I had planned for Adrian. I had planned for his lies. But I had not planned for her to show up here, in this room, in front of everyone. Adrian's eyes flicked toward the door. For just a second, his mask slipped. He hadn't expected her. Then he smiled too wide and moved quickly to greet her, covering the panic with charm. Whispers rippled through the guests. Who is she? Is that Adrian's colleague? She's stunning. I gripped the edge of the table until my knuckles turned white. If Sabine spoke first, if she claimed him openly, my plan could spiral into chaos. Eleanor leaned close, her voice low. Stay calm. Stick to the plan. She's not the complication. She's the opportunity. But my pulse thundered. Because Sabine wasn't just sitting quietly. She walked straight to a chair near Adrian, sliding in as if she belonged there. Her perfume drifted across the table, sickly sweet. Adrian laughed too loudly again. Everyone, this is Sabine. She helped with a project overseas. The lie was so thin it tore in the air. I could feel the room tilt. The colleagues exchanging glances. Clara staring, horrified. Julian catching my eye from across the room, giving me a small nod, hold steady. Adrian picked up his glass again, desperate to regain control. To the future, he declared, voice shaking only slightly. To loyalty and love. The word love made Sabine smile. A private smile. A dangerous smile. And I knew, in that moment, the dinner had changed. This wasn't just my stage anymore. Sabine had entered, and she was a character with her own script. Sabine lifted her glass too. Then, without warning, she said loudly, to Adrian, the man who promised me Paris. The room froze. My fork slipped from my hand and clattered against the plate. The sound of Sabine's toast cracked through the air like breaking glass. To Adrian, the man who promised me Paris. Forks paused midair. Glasses hung untouched. The room, filled with chatter only seconds ago, fell into a stunned silence. I watched Adrian's face. His practiced grin faltered, his jaw tightening as he forced a laugh. Ah, Sabine is joking, he said, his voice pitched too high. We often kid about travels, don't we? But Sabine did not laugh. She tilted her head, her eyes glittering with defiance. Do I look like I'm joking, Adrian? Paris, Rome, and those long nights you said were spent at the office. Or should I remind you about Prague? The whispers rose like a wave. Prague? What is she saying? Didn't he tell us he was in Chicago that week? Adrian's hand trembled slightly as he set down his glass. He tried again, his voice slower, smoother. Sabine, let's not, this isn't the time or place. Then when is the time? She asked, her voice cutting through the air like a blade. Because I've been waiting for you to keep even one of your promises. I could feel every eye shift between them, and then to me. For the first time that night, I stood. My heart pounded, but my voice came steady, sharp. Adrian, I said, this is the perfect place. Because you've always loved an audience. Gasps fluttered across the table. Adrian turned to me, color draining from his cheeks. Lyra, sit down. Please. Don't make a scene. You made the scene, I said. 4 months. You told me you were working late, traveling for clients, pouring your energy into us. While you were using our money, our life, to buy her dinners and hotels. I have the receipts, Adrian. I have the credit card statements. And now, everyone has the truth. Eleanor slid a folder across the table toward me, her expression cool. I opened it and pulled out the printed statements, each one marked and highlighted. I read them aloud. Every dinner. Every flight. Every bouquet of roses. My voice did not waver. January 12th. Hilton, Paris. Paid with my card. February 3rd. Cartier bracelet. March 22nd. Prague, 2 tickets, neither for me. Adrian lunged forward, his face twisted. Stop it. But it was too late. The room was no longer his. Colleagues stared at him with disgust. Friends muttered in disbelief. Sabine crossed her arms, looking almost smug, as if she had finally forced his lies into daylight. You wanted loyalty and love? I said, holding up the last page. Here is loyalty, mine, thrown back in my face. And here is love, yours, bought and hidden. So tell us, Adrian, which toast do you prefer tonight? He opened his mouth, but no words came. Only silence. From the back of the room, Clara's voice rang out clear and firm. I think everyone here deserves to hear the recordings, Lyra. All eyes turned to me. The room seemed to tilt as Clara stepped forward, her phone in her hand. Go ahead, Lyra, she said. Play them. I nodded once. My palms were sweating, but my mind was sharp as glass. I pressed the button, and Adrian's voice filled the hall, amplified by the silence. Sabine, I told her I'm working late again. She never questions it. She's too emotional to see the truth. The recording ended. No one breathed. Then another one began. I'll transfer the money from our joint account tomorrow. She'll think it went to bills. Dinner's on her this time, as always. A murmur broke through the crowd, not soft this time, harsh, like knives dragged across stone. Colleagues shook their heads. A man from Adrian's team whispered, he used her money? Someone else muttered, and he called her emotional? Adrian's chair screeched as he stood. His face was red, his voice frantic. This is all twisted. Out of context. But Clara held up the phone. Funny thing about recordings, she said calmly. They play the context for you. Sabine's arms dropped to her sides, her bravado cracking. Adrian, you told me. He snapped at her, shut up. And that was his final mistake. The last shred of sympathy drained from the room. Eleanor rose, collected, powerful. Enough. I will not sit here and listen to him degrade 2 women he deceived, while stealing from one of them. Her voice carried the weight of authority. Lyra, do you want me to continue? Yes, I said, steady now. Everyone here deserves the truth. I flipped the last page in the folder. Adrian promised me forever. He promised me love. But here is what forever looked like in his hands: lies, betrayal, and theft. So tonight, I give forever back. And he can live with the wreckage. Adrian tried to speak, but no one listened. Chairs shifted back. Friends whispered to each other, shaking their heads. His boss, the one he had been desperate to impress, stood up and said coldly, "Adrian, we'll talk on Monday. About your position." Adrian froze. The color drained from his face. That was the moment he realized his lies had not just destroyed his marriage. They had destroyed his career. Sabine suddenly slammed her glass down and shouted, "You think you've won, Lyra? You don't know the half of it." Sabine's words cut through the room like a blade. "You don't know the half of it, Lyra," she said, her eyes flashing. The crowd turned toward her, hungry for the next twist. I steadied myself. "Then tell them, Sabine. Go ahead." Her voice shook, but she raised her chin. "Adrian told me you were unstable. He said you drained his account, that you begged him for money, that you trapped him. He said he stayed with you out of pity." Gasps rippled through the audience. Adrian buried his face in his hands. I waited for him to deny it, but silence stretched. So I pulled the final paper from my folder. I wondered why Sabine never doubted him. Here's why. He gave her the same lies he gave me. Only this time, I kept every statement, every receipt, every transfer. Adrian never saved me, I saved him. I funded his life. And he funded hers. The weight of the words settled across the hall. People shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Eleanor's voice rang out, "That's fraud. And Adrian, you will be answering to more than one room for this." Sabine's face crumbled. She looked at me with something close to shame. "I didn't know," she whispered. "I thought I was the only one." "Now you do," I replied. My tone wasn't cruel, it was final. The dinner ended not with applause, but with murmurs that followed Adrian out like a trail of fire. He stormed past the tables, shoving chairs, no one daring to stop him. His empire of charm had collapsed in one night. The next morning, my phone buzzed non-stop. Messages from colleagues, "We stand with you. We had no idea. Thank you for speaking up." From Adrian's boss, "He's suspended pending review. We will not tolerate this behavior." Then, the call from my lawyer, "Lyra, we can pursue both divorce and restitution. With this evidence, the court will see exactly what he did. He won't just lose you. He'll lose every mask he's ever worn." I hung up and looked around my apartment. It was quiet, but not empty. For the first time in years, I felt the silence was mine. That evening, a message arrived from an unknown number. Just 4 words, "This isn't over, Lyra." The message "This isn't over, Lyra" burned on my screen. But by then, it was already over. 2 weeks later, I sat in a courtroom, sunlight streaming through tall windows that made the space feel like truth itself was watching. Adrian walked in wearing the same suit he had worn to charity dinners, but it hung loose, the shine gone. His lawyer whispered urgently in his ear, but Adrian's eyes were bloodshot, his shoulders slumped. The judge read the evidence aloud. Transfers. Statements. Screenshots. Every dollar traced, every lie exposed. This court finds Mr. Adrian Clark guilty of marital fraud and financial misconduct. The gavel struck, sharp and final. Adrian flinched. I didn't. The divorce was granted on the spot. Restitution ordered. His reputation, once spotless, was now a headline. The man who had drained me was suddenly bankrupt in every way that mattered. As we exited, reporters swarmed. Cameras flashed. One asked, "Lyra, what do you want people to take from this?" I looked straight at the lens. That silence protects liars. Evidence protects truth. And truth always finds a stage. Adrian pushed through the crowd, ignored by everyone who once called him brilliant. His name was mud, and he knew it. Weeks passed. The whispers faded. My phone stopped buzzing. The quiet became peace. I moved into a new apartment, bright walls, my own art on the shelves. Eleanor visited often, and we laughed like women who had carried fire and survived. One evening, I hosted a small dinner. Not a spectacle, just friends who had stood by me. We clinked glasses over simple food. Someone asked, "Lyra, do you regret exposing him so publicly?" I thought about the years of being dismissed, called too emotional, accused of being the problem. Then I smiled. No. I regret waiting as long as I did. The table erupted in warm laughter. The sound filled the room, not with chaos, but with life. Before bed, I opened my notebook. On a blank page I wrote, "He drained me. I restored myself. And I left him with nothing but truth." Then I closed it. I didn't need to keep records anymore. The story was finished. If you've ever been told to stay quiet, if someone ever tried to make you smaller while they built themselves taller, remember this: your voice is proof. Your truth has weight. And if this story gave you strength, share it, because you never know who else is waiting for their moment to stand up and end the lies.